name is Charlie Hendricks.
He hates her. He wants her off the island.
One of those people down there is the killer.
Hello, and welcome to Series 4 of Jam Presents, a podcast series by me, Mike Groves, and a good mate of mine, Jason Cripps. We're here to investigate the murder of Charlie Hendricks alongside Channel 4's new murder mystery reality TV show, Murder Island. Yeah, I always cut this start bit off.
Oh, so you're cutting that?
I mean, I'll keep that in now. You've called me out for it. Murder Island, episode 2. We're back for another almost live episode of Murder Island. Thankfully, I didn't get too much hassle for the lack of cuts last week, so we're doing the same again. Thankfully, have I said thankfully twice now? I don't like that when I say the same word twice, so I do apologise for that, because again, can't cut, I've just got to apologise more. But since this is episode 2, we don't need to explain the premise of the show or how our podcasts normally differ. If you are joining us for the first time on this one, what the hell are you doing? Go back and listen to episode 1. Look, before we get into this episode, there are a few things that we need to discuss, clear up. First of all, the response we have received over the last week has been incredible. I appreciate that I do get a bit over familiar with people by getting into their Twitter timelines. So look, I do apologise for the intrusion.
As long as it's not the DMs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. No, only if they DM me first. I'm not weird. I'm not stalking them like Hamish. But anyway, we'll get to that bit of the episode later on, although that was a highlight. But look, what it's meant is that we've now got dozens more followers who are trying to solve this murder with us, and many new listeners to the podcast, which is always a good thing. It's great that you can all join us. We've also had a retweet from Ian Rankin, or a couple of retweets now from Ian Rankin, which is mind-blowing. Follows and likes from so many people, including who we think might be Dot and Rocks. We've got David Mortimer, the managing director of STV, listening to us, which is just mind-blowing. And we've also had a few messages from Richmond on Instagram, who I am still banking on winning the show. And you know what? I wrote these notes just before the show started, and even more so now, but we'll get into that later on. This leads nicely onto the second point that we ought to make. Since most of the engagement that we've had with people, we have been shown so many more clues that we failed to pick up on or just plain ignored in last week's podcast.
I think that's more likely, yeah. We just ignored them.
Let's be honest, one big thing, the £2,000 in cash that was found in the manse. We didn't discuss what that could have been for. Was it a payoff from the baby's father, for example? And there was a passport present as well. Was Charlie planning on doing a runner? We didn't discuss any of that. There was the dictaphone, and I promise I won't make the joke again this week, but if it does come back later in the series, I'll be sure to mention it. We didn't at the time quite pick up on who could have been on the dictaphone, but many of people who are following us have pointed out that it sounds actually like Charlie as a young girl, and it's her dad, and not, as we thought, the father of Charlie's child, which makes sense because I don't think she had any kids before, she became pregnant.
Yeah.
My favourite thing we missed, and eagle eyes on @FunkyMagicUK, and I promise that's not my alt name on Twitter. This is someone else that does magic, because there are many of us. Anyway, Funky Magic UK.
There's all two of you.
There's all two of us. But anyway, Funky Magic UK pointed out that there was a corkscrew on the side next to the bottle of wine, and the bottle of wine being a screw top. And you can overlook that, you can forgive it, because we've all done that at one point or another. We've bought a bottle of wine from the shop, you get home, pick up a corkscrew only to find out that the bottle's a screw top. However, could there be something deeper to this? Could it be during the eliminations or in the final episode? They're like, you're so thick you didn't even notice. And that would be amazing. I don't think that's the case. I think it probably is just a set design error. But I would absolutely love it if that come back to haunt them.
Do we actually know the murder weapon?
I don't think so. I think we know it's a knife of some sort because she was stabbed, right?
Okay.
And she's also got the stab marks on her hand. And one of the investigators, Nick or Andrew, suggested that she might have been defending the baby. And that's why she's got the cut on her hand, because she didn't want to, get stabbed there. But yeah, I don't. As far as I know, there's not an evidence bag with a knife in it at the moment. But yeah, they might turn around and say, they must have said it in the pathologist's report, because the other day we knew her stomach contents. They must have said what it was, like a 6-inch blade. It just seems.
It just seems weird that we're not looking for something.
Yeah, and we've not written that down, so that's probably a big piece of evidence that we've just completely overlooked. Let us know. So anyone listening, just let us know. We'll find out in the next 7 days anyway. We'll address that next week.
What, that we missed a huge chunk of the episode?
The murder weapon. Yeah. And look, just one more thing before we move on. There's so much information available in that press pack regarding the island, the island, the show, and those involved. And we won't cover all that here, but we'd urge everyone to go and take a look at that. The press pack, it's on the Channel 4 website. There are some standout bits of information that could be key to solving the case at home. And the biographies of the detectives, contestants, and suspects are actually so much deeper than they can convey in a 6-hour series. There is stuff there that we'll probably keep if we do a bonus episode at the end of this. Still haven't decided yet whether or not we do, but if there is a need or a want for a bonus episode, then we will dig some of the stuff out of the press pack. But in terms of the backstory of the characters, there's quite a lot there. And that's where I got the information last week about Logan collecting lobsters. I mean, reading into it more, I'm sure it's like lobsters, langoustines, and crabs. So I think he's a fisherman. He's not just got a random collection on his bedroom wall, but who knows? Anyway, now we've cleared all those things up, on with the episode. I've got a few things which fit into some sort of structure, and then we'll look over any additional points that you've taken notes on, read some of the tweets that we've received over the last few hours, and then look at who we think will win and who we think the killer is. Firstly, let's start by getting your 1 or 2 word summary, and I'm going to give you time to think. And before you tell me yours, I just want to say how last week you said conflicted and I said half-baked, which I agree, we felt that at the time about the show itself. So the hour that we'd watched, you were conflicted, and I thought it might have been a bit half-baked. And this isn't just because David Mortimer might be listening.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But look, if you look at Murder Island as an experience rather than just a show, it's massive. There is so much hype around it online, and we're right amongst it at the moment. There are so many people on Twitter sharing notes. It's completely changed my mind at how I view the show. And we can do like a quick review and summary of the past hour. But as a whole experience, this is phenomenal. This is like nothing we've ever covered before. And I get it. It's because we're covering something that's live rather than something that's from 8, 15, 20 years ago. But the buzz, and you've always said on all of our other podcasts, you've said how much those old shows would have benefited from that social media interaction.
Yeah, and this definitely does.
Massively. And I know people do it for all other shows. People get caught up on Line of Duty and things like that, and they write notes and stuff like that. But this is actually a real thing that it genuinely feels like we could solve it. Or I don't mean we, I don't think we've got any chance, but I think there are people online that could solve this before some of the investigators on the show.
Yeah, with the information that's given to them from the show, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I'm easy. You can either sum up what you think of it overall, or, and in fact, let's do both. For me, I think phenomenal is what I'd use for the experience now in terms of what we've seen over the last 7, 8 days. How many days are in a week? 7, but then there's the extra day, that's 8.
Do you mean there's an extra day?
Well, like we're Tuesday to Tuesday, so if you include both Tuesdays,
Okay.
that's 8 days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought I was losing my mind there. So yeah, I think the whole experience is fantastic. The episode, 1 or 2 words?
3 words?
I might let you have one, yeah.
Found its feet.
Yeah, that's really
You reckon?
good. That's
I think the first episode, because obviously I said it was conflicted,
yeah.
the first episode. But I think this one, it's just got a lot more structure and you can see where it's going. And it just gives you a lot more information than the first episode.
Well, I think that sort of leads on to the actual episode itself. This was, for all intents and purposes, it had a synopsis and it had like, this is what's going to happen and stuff, but it was called Good Cop, Bad Cop. This was the interview episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This was pure information gathering, the first port of call within the first 48 hours of the murder. This was going to anyone that you consider a suspect and finding out as much as you can. Now, undoubtedly, they're going to have to press all these people again, but you're absolutely right. I think the first one was more of a telling the plot, the scene setting, wasn't it? And then now we're at a point where, okay, you know what it's all about. We're going to show you all of this. Next week, it wouldn't matter if next week's episode is all about stating their case and pulling everything they've got together so far. And then from that, they can work out what they need to go and do next. But yeah, found its feet. I think that's, is there a way of putting that into 2 words? My English isn't very good. I don't read enough.
Found feet?
That found feet. Yeah, found feet.
Oh,
found
God.
itself.
That's still 3 words.
Got good. No, itself is one word. If you can make it 2, but no. For me, there are 2 words, and I've mentioned them already. And I'm going to cheat by putting an "and" in between because they are still 2 words. But my first word is Sarah. My second word is Richmond. It's their episode.
Oh, 100%.
It is
100%.
absolutely their episode. Now, mentioned what this particular episode was all about, and there are 2 main lines of inquiry. Not that I know where I've put that now because I've actually gone back to last week's notes, so that's a really good start. But the 2 main things we know about so far that the investigators are looking into this week are the argument between Gene Hamish, of which he is now known, although in this episode they do correct themselves. They go in early, don't they? It is very much Hamish, and then I think it's when they go to meet him, one of the producers or the other detectives have pulled them aside and said, "You've got to cut this out, guys. It's Hamish."
But even at the start, I think he says it's Hamish, and then she, about 3 seconds later, calls him Hamish.
Oh, I'll have to find it.
It's fantastic.
And the other line of inquiry is obviously the pregnancy and finding out more about the relationship between the likes of Tony and whether or not he and Sonia knew and things like that. At that long pause, you were like looking at me as though to say, "You gonna say anything? You're waiting for me?"
Because I know you've got notes, but I've just got absolute dribble again.
Yeah, look.
This time I haven't got notes about swans and peacocks.
Well, I mean, the peacock was still there.
True.
I think the peacock actually got longer time. I think if at the rate it's going, the peacock's going to have a 10-minute slot in episode.
It did do a little bit of a zoom in on its face. I was half waiting for them to put like a picture of the peacock up on the board.
So you've got 8 suspects and a peacock.
Yeah.
I think with that, is it a clue? Is there someone in there?
What, in the peacock? It just one episode, it just changes. And it's blatantly a man in a suit. And you're thinking, was it always like that? I'm sure it's a real peacock. Yeah, so wonderful.
I'll be going back over all those like gifts that we've got. Yeah, like the diary and the hot water bottle. We've now got.
Well, I've wrote something down about that.
Killer inside a peacock. I mean, tell me what you've got written down about the hot water bottle, because that was last week.
The hot water bottle. I'm just saying that I think last week you mentioned like
the snooker cue,
something in the snooker cue or the pool cue, and as soon as he started unwinding it, he said something. I was like, if he pulls a diary or any piece of paper out of this now,
I was waiting for a knife or a gun or something.
He goes, you know what it makes? He starts unscrewing it. He goes, you know what it makes? It makes a good weapon or something, doesn't he? I was thinking he's going to unscrew it and say, you know what this makes? A good diary holder.
A good way to open up a hot water bottle. Oh my goodness me.
Anyway.
So look, I think we're on to the notes because, as I mentioned, that we'll go through the episode in order, there or thereabouts. There was quite a lot to pick up on. What I felt like it was slow paced, really slow paced. It just took place in one day.
But I love episodes like that.
I was bombarded with information.
Yeah.
There like a lot. So much to capture.
Like a chatty episode.
Definitely, yep. But you're right. It really did well. Following on from last week's, which was more action, this was very much more. Right, going to focus on getting answers from these guys. First of all, the eco resort, the very first thing we see, because we see the flashbacks and things like that. That looks amazing.
Yeah, I think we said this last week. It does look good.
Yeah, and from what I've learned, and someone on Twitter has got in touch and said, this is a real thing. Islands like Shetland and things are being destroyed by visitors or people who want second or third homes on the island and stuff like that. And I get it. You don't just want to build everything on there. But an eco resort doesn't seem to, unless it's a live-in resort, you would think that it's more to encourage tourism rather than, do you know what I mean?
Hike the house prices up.
Yeah. But I just think it looks great. And I thought it was worth mentioning that that's happening in real life. On that note, there's also someone that's in touch on Instagram as well. And I should be naming these people because there are so many people that are getting in touch and telling us stuff. And look, I really, really appreciate it because there's people that live on the island that have been getting in touch with us and have telling us all about.
They actually live on Murder Island.
They live on Murder Island, yeah. I mean, I'd be moving now knowing what's been going on there. What it did remind me of as well is hashtag island life is definitely a thing. Now, you criticise me a lot. I live in Stroud. Stroud is a little bit hippie. There are certain things you can do in Stroud that you can't get away with in other places, like not having a bath. No, I love it here. But it's very much hashtag Stroud life is that thing that you say to me when I'm doing something that you maybe consider a little bit hipster. But
with your tote bag saying the farmer's market.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's made from recyclable materials and stuff. It's important. But what it feels like is, look, there's quite a few times where we can brandish hashtag island life. I mean, we're flitting now because I'm going right to the very end of the episode. But Jean with that post bag, you have to wait for the ferry to come with a post van on to drop your letters off at a post van every day. That's some commitment to your job, Jean, by the way. Fair play. But also, that's real. That genuinely happens. How else do you get your post to the mainland? But I bloody love it.
You'd think she'd know the exact time the boat would come as well, or just say, "Oh, just give me a call when you're like docking in, and I'll run outside."
rather than waiting
here 20 minutes
until you've been interviewed as well. Like it was good timing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be awful if I had that job. I'd just get bored. I'd chuck it all in the water and be like, "Oh, yeah, I sent it. Yeah." They just didn't write back, obviously.
So we'll go back to the start and we'll go through. Again, the first thing that we notice is, other than the flashback to last week and the incident itself, is the name of the episode, Good Cop, Bad Cop. Now, we've mentioned it already, but last week you were saying that Nick and Andrew were going in Good Cop, Bad Cop, and they were being criticised for it.
But this episode's called Good Cop,
and it's called Good Cop, Bad Cop, and that is exactly what Richmond and Sarah have employed throughout this episode. But perhaps they've gone about it in a better way, rather than just bombard people.
Oh, yeah, like Richmond was no way a bad cop.
No, but he was stern. He was
stern cop.
Stern cop. Yeah. So Richmond and Sarah are the first people that we see. As we mentioned already, they go in straight away with an early Hamish. They mentioned the sort of empathy, the soft voice, the calming voice. And then Richmond lands upon us that he was a footballer.
Yeah.
And they had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Come from nowhere, that did.
Yeah, and we'll mention it like when we get to it. I don't want to bring everything all up to this part of the episode, but there were quite a lot of wholesome and feel-good moments in this episode where you find stuff out about people. And actually, that was one of those things like reality check. Blimey, fair play to you for applying to do this and actually doing something about it. And, because, that's some going to go from playing football. I don't know if he mentioned professional. I'm sure he said something about being pretty good. And that's career ender, but no, fair play. It helps that he's really nice and we can get behind him as well as an investigator because, really supportive.
He called himself Rich. Did you?
Yeah, he did quite a lot. Yeah. So although he's formerly Richmond, do you think that's just to establish straight away, I'm a rich, but I'm a Richmond. I'm not a Richard. Because if you come in straight away and call yourself Richard, then other people would be like, I think Richard's good. Or
yeah, but he said Detective Rich. Sure, you just say Detective Richmond.
Well, I mean, if his name's Rich, but all I mean is, has the episode established early on that he's a Richmond rather than a Richard? Do you know what I mean?
Not sure.
Because I had a mate once called, I mean, if you're still out there, I'd still be friends with you. We just went our separate ways when we were younger. But instead of, his name was Ben, but his name was Benedict rather than Benjamin.
Ah.
I guess like Benedict Cumberbatch as well. He's a Benedict.
But how did he address himself? Detective Ben.
Yes, yeah, that's how he'd introduce himself at school. So something else I picked up on was that they mentioned at one point there was no alcohol in Charlie's system from the path report that came through last week. Now that surprised me because there were 2 glasses of wine, weren't there, that had been left out.
Yeah. But unopened, wasn't it, the wine? Is that what we're saying?
Was it unopened or was the screw cap just back on it? I'm not sure. We now need to go back and look at that to see whether or not the wine was opened. These are the things that we'd be like kicking ourselves. We'd be doing a full-on dot and rocks. Did we get that information? Oh shit, no, we didn't.
let's just make it up. Pretend we did.
Yes, yeah, that wine was not opened. The glasses were there, but then she realised.
Yeah.
Oh god. What is apparent early on as well is that everybody's thinking along the same lines of us. I mean, that's obviously a given. Everybody's getting the same information. The viewers are getting the same information as the investigators for the most of it. There are a few issues with that and what we see, but ultimately, we have the same opportunity as solving this as the people on the show. And again, from what we've spoken about and what people are talking about on Twitter, it's very much we're all thinking along the same lines. What I love is that, and apparently, it's always apparently, but what we know about other murder shows and things like that, the detectives do not know who the killer is.
No, because...
Too easy to let slide.
Yeah.
And if they pick a favourite within the couples,
Yeah.
then it could ruin it. And especially with competition law and things like that, with 50 grand at stake, I guess they have to make it that
it's all got to be legit.
There's no bias. Yeah. Although I do love that fact that they don't know.
What's the detective name? Simon
and Macca. Yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed, and I had to even Google it because I thought about it. His tie matches his pocket square.
Yes, it does. I did notice that.
That's a bit of a fashion faux pas, I think. It's not meant to.
Oh.
So, sorry if that was a Christmas present and I've just ruined it. But
yeah.
And he thought he'd wear both.
I was buying you a Jam Presents tie and pocket square with our logo on it, but now I'm going to have to get you like some other...
Something different, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe like inverted colours or something.
Yeah. But I'm glad you gave me the heads up.
So just letting you know.
Genuinely didn't know that, but at least now I know for all those occasions that I wear suits now that I'm working from home and stuff.
Anyway, carry on. Where do you think his money come from? That's a good question.
Okay, the money came from. I think there's look. The obvious thing is that there's some ties with Freddie. That Charlie used to work. So this is actually a big revelation, isn't it? So where we get to speaking with Freddie and we learn from Tony, because there's so many cross paths and people interviewing the same people, but essentially Freddie came to the island 10 days ago and went to the pub that Tony runs. Says, I recognise you, don't I? And Tony's like, no, I don't think you do. I have not been to Glasgow for years now.
Yeah,
sure
then Tony phoned Sonia and said, oh, Freddie's here.
Yeah, I don't know you, mate. Papping it. But
then later on, when Freddie's getting interviewed, he's like, yeah, I do know him.
Yeah, yes, because I think within those 10 days, he's probably worked out where he knows him from.
Okay, yeah.
So that's something we'll learn, I think, along the way. Now, Freddie, says that he knows him from his days back in Glasgow, where Freddie would have owned clubs, Tony was a bouncer, and Charlie was a DJ. Now, obviously, there's all this around the money being tied to drugs and things like that. They focus so much on the ganj. They focus so much. You weren't expecting me to say it that way, were you? The plant that was growing, the dried weed in her possession, and also what looked like rock salts. Now, that money is basically the island chipping in, because there are only about 8 people on this island. That's just their supply for the year. That one plant is their supply for the year. And Charlie just happened. The keys to the manse. The rules are, you just have to look after this plant. Yeah. Forget all the rest of them. That's the one you have to water, and it serves the whole island for the whole year. That's my watertight theory on what that plant or where the money, what it's for. Either that, or she won it in a game of snooker against Freddie because he's at his wrist.
True. So it's heavily implying it's drug money.
Heavily implied. Is that too obvious?
Or is it hush money? Is it Tony saying, it's not my baby? Like, here's two grand.
Don't tell Sonia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because another thing, Sonia was very controlling over Tony.
Ooh.
Constantly, there's a
answers
few times,
all his questions for him.
Yeah. And he's constantly looking at her like, oh, can I answer this question? No, you're not. I am.
And then when questioned, she's like, no, I didn't know that. And then Tony's like, yeah, I knew that. And then Sonia's like, yeah, I did too.
Right, it's not competition.
Yeah, I knew before you, like 1 minute.
Yeah. So that's the way we're going. But I think the episode's so, especially the second half of the episode, is so leaning heavily towards the drugs.
Oh, and next time as well, when they so someone tweeted and suggested that we shouldn't be seeing some of the conversations that we see because it's not fair that investigators don't get to see them. So
I said that first episode, didn't I? Did I say that?
That was over a week ago, possibly.
Basically copying me. But
there was that whole Logan and Freddie scene, which I don't want to talk about right now, but the investigators aren't privy to that at all. Now, don't get me wrong, they will find the dinghy, they will find the boat, and we know. I think it's because we're seeing the Ian Rankin story and they're playing
living
the game.
Yeah.
And we're just privy to it as a story reader. And I think that's just the way it's written. But I think by the end of it, they will unlock the fact that there's no way that they're not going to know by the end of it that Freddie was in cahoots with Logan.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's bad having that in there.
No, it felt a lot more organic this time, I think, than the first episode.
Definitely. We are flitting so much, but Tony and Sonia, when they're being interviewed at the very start by Chrissy and Caroline, Sonia saying, "No, there's no relationship going on there. What are you trying to imply? No, he might have gone round, but only to fix a light bulb."
Yeah. Is that
a euphemism?
That's definitely.
When they dropped that pregnancy bomb, I thought everything was going to erupt. That was incredible.
Yeah, but also I thought, Simon's going to be annoyed.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be, hang on, you're giving away information you shouldn't have.
You've played your hand too quick here.
But fair play, I do like his role as a supporting officer. That he then, they then class dismissed, they go out the room and then discuss what they should have done. Because, hang on, they saw that Tony was agitated at that point. They should have really pressed. But I think they're probably conscious, hold on a minute, should I not have said that? So maybe they didn't go into that. A lot of people as well, again, I'm sorry that I can't refer to everybody's name because there are quite a few people said to us, they should have split Tony and Sonia up. They should have had conversations separately. And I think it was Beth that said, as soon as they went out the room to speak to the officer, Tony and Sonia could have been whispering, saying, "Just say this." They could have been collaborating the same
rather than splitting them up and then they can't.
Yeah, because then you would have that Sonia saying, "No, we didn't know about it," and then you'd have Tony saying, "Yeah, we did."
When they dropped the bombshell about being pregnant, that Charlie was pregnant, and obviously Tony said he knew. He said that Charlie told him on the day of the meeting. And why would Charlie give that information away? When how many weeks she'd been there? 6 weeks pregnant?
6 weeks.
You don't tell people you're pregnant at 6 weeks.
No. Although she's got a long-standing relationship. So the fact that he knew her back in his club days and stuff like that, perhaps he's the only person on the island that he could open to. Or very much more likely he's the dad. Some people still saying that she's pregnant beforehand, and that is just a complete red herring.
True.
Imagine that's the case. But that would have been very much, she got pregnant like a few nights before she left. Still possible, yeah, Anyway, a few people asked for the CCTV. Now, it is my aim to learn how to either lip read this week or actually just make up a script for that CCTV, because it's very much Hamish being really aggressive. They're all giving Charlie shit. Everybody that came out of that, it was Hamish, it was Jean, it was Jean trying to leave, wasn't it? Then Hamish following, saying, "No, come back here." Then Charlie saying, "Don't," and then she gets picked up by Hamish and manhandled across the courtyard. And then Alicia comes out and shouts something in her face as well. And I'm thinking,
I thought that's weird.
Poor bloody Charlie.
Do you think that?
Yeah, that Alicia. Why is Alicia even there?
Well, mate, my head's spinning all over the place. I thought perhaps Charlie's like a double agent. She's gone there to get in with the locals to be like, "No, don't sell, or something." You know what I mean? I don't know how it would work.
I love that.
Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
She's actually, because she knows Freddie, so she's like, "Hang on, we need someone over here to get in with the locals to tell them not to sell. I don't know how it'd work.
Well, no,
That's what I'm
you
thinking.
say that, but there's something in this because the drugs. What if the drugs, she isn't a user at all? She's just been able to get hold of drugs in Glasgow or what have you, and she's planting that, either growing the drugs in the manse or putting it in the pub, or somehow
and then,
she's setting someone up with it.
And she has had a relationship with Jean,
yeah,
which is interfered with the whole Hamish. And they said Hamish.
This is all they say now.
So that's completely separate. But then, what's her name? Alyssa.
Yeah, Alicia. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah,
it's not the same. Doing it some angry tweets.
I'm sure she calls herself Alicia, but it's about Alicia.
So she obviously comes out and she says something, but it's like, well, what's she saying? Because she's got nothing to do with this. So, but she looks angry at Charlie. So is she just saying like, well done, you messed that up?
Yeah. You should have planted the drugs on her.
Yeah.
I don't want to get caught up on that because it is far fetched. The drugs bit, not your bit. I think it's a solid theory.
What to come back out that Charlie's actually in with them?
Mm.
We think that she's innocent, but she's not. Is that the Ian Rankin twist?
We'll get onto that. Yeah, it could well be. The next scene we see after that CCTV's being reviewed, we go back to an interview with Hamish. I've got to keep correcting. People have to know. I do know his name is Hamish, but I just love so much that his name is Hamish. It's fantastic. When they ask him what his last words were, and he says, "Not in peace." Now, I get that what he's saying, his last words weren't in peace. That's fine. But what if his last words were not in peace? It's daft, I know, but it did make me laugh.
What made me laugh was it Chrissy and Caroline? And Simon goes to him, "Oh, you need to get CCTV," and oh yeah, we'll ask for CCTV.
Mm.
And then it cuts to, I think Simon just given the boys
Nicky and Andrew.
stick,
yeah, they've requested the CCTV. Yeah,
it's like they didn't even have to work for it. They haven't got up. They haven't even left the office, and they're just getting handed it.
Did you also notice that obviously Hamish was down in quite a bit of scotch while he was being interviewed?
Yeah,
and there was a lot of paperwork underneath. Perhaps eagle-eyed viewers noticed what it said, but if you look carefully, it says on the paperwork, "This is my confession by Hamish." And he's actually put 2 M's in his name as well. That's all about
alter ego, is it?
I do think though on that we saw far too much of Hamish in this episode.
It's definitely not him.
For him to be the killer.
It's definitely not him.
Yeah, he's too much at the moment.
Because it's too his motive. Well, yeah, his motive's too much, I think.
I also think that this series was not written to entertain people who are going to rip it apart and for us to analyze every single scene and talk about it like we do. I think it was written in the style like you would a book. There's no way we wouldn't ever read a book and go through it like tooth and nail and say, well, I think this is going to happen. You just sit back, enjoy it. And that's, for the majority of people, that's what people are doing on a Tuesday night, is just watching, sitting back, enjoying
these
it
contestants
and waiting
have
for
been
the
dropped
next one.
into this book story.
So, yeah, exactly. And so ultimately, Hamish is that. It's not like, oh yeah, but isn't it? I think it very much is.
No.
That's exposure. And a lot of people now, if you were to speak to people who aren't analysing it like we are, they'll go, oh yeah, it was clearly Hamish. They would probably say Hamish. They'd probably get the name right.
Did you see when Chrissy and Caroline are going through the CCTV, then Chrissy goes, oh, you know me and the computers. And I was just hoping that it would spin round and she's doing some like mad hacking or something.
Man.
yeah, rewinding it, cutting it.
Yeah, she's like in with the Pentagon and everything.
You know, that's CSI, like enhance,
yeah.
And it gets clearer.
Oh, so the next thing we see, look, is Palm talking to Simon and Macca about the detectives or about the investigators. Andrew and Nick aren't listening or thinking. Sarah and Richmond, they say Richmond is overpowering, but they quite like that. And Sarah's empathetic, and we saw that all throughout this episode. Dot and Rox even tell the witnesses their addresses and where they live, which is brilliant. They're just massive oversharers.
Pets' names.
And Caroline speaks over Chrissy, and they need to work better together. And there's a touching moment that we'll get to a little while on, because it was one of my favourite moments, actually. I've mentioned that the peacock's back. I've mentioned the peacock quite a lot, but I do really have got fond,
Peacock watch.
Yeah, peacock watch. So if he's not in every episode, I will be disappointed. And I sat there earlier, and I was about to tweet about it, and I was like, he's back, and I was like, how do I know it's a he? Like, it might not be a he. I realised this is a peacock and not a peahen. Absolute idiot. Anyway, Caroline and Chrissy, like some of the things they come out with. I mean, last week we had the pregnant ladies smoke drugs, and there were a few others about the. I think they were just reading the path report, but the fact that they're going, the uterus.
Path report. Check you out.
You mentioned CSI, mate, and Hans, the path report. What else do you call it? The pathology report. But yeah, last week the uterus was slightly bulky and things like that. But they're quite presumptuous, aren't they? Where they mention, I think the lesbian relationship is sexual. Blimey. It might have just been a kiss in front of a campfire, because that's all we know so far, but okay. The next thing, and I tweeted about it because it's amazing, is the meeting of Dot and Rox on the beach with Alicia and the Arsene Wenger coat.
So who's she on the phone to?
She's on the phone to Mikel Arteta to tell him about some signings that he needs to make this January transfer window, because that coat, I couldn't get past it. You're right, she was on the phone, didn't even pick that up because I was so
once you saw the coat,
focused on that coat. I saw that coat and I was looking for images of Arsene Wenger on my phone. I don't even know what they spoke about. There was so much I missed in that scene. So she mentioned that she was staying with Freddie. That's all I got. Did she give anything else away? Oh, she worked for Cordelia. So she works for Cordelia.
And then we had to see her sat in her London office.
Yes, again,
just to confirm
with the London Eye in the background. That's Cordelia, guys. Remember, she works in London.
I think she was on the phone to Logan.
I don't think she was. Unless she was based on what Freddie... Because Freddie said, oh, I'm here to meet Alicia.
Bang,
and
see?
Yeah, but Freddie says, oh, no, it's me that wants to see you. So are you assuming that Freddie said, can you give Logan a ring? Or...
No, I'm assuming that he's come over to see her. And obviously she's on the beach.
Yeah.
And he's come to the door, and it's Freddie there.
Yeah, quite possibly.
And he's like, actually, I'll take this opportunity.
The way I saw it, because Freddie was very much like, oh, it's me that wanted to see you. I thought he just wanted someone to play snooker with.
Yeah. Follow me up the stairs to the
Just needed a doubles partner or something. And this was the actual scene where we see Logan and Freddie. This was the scene that some people didn't like and said, should we see that? But I think that will all become apparent later anyway to all the investigators. Next comment, you've already mentioned it, but shit, I thought there was going to be a gun or a knife in the snooker cue. It was fantastic when he's opening it up and you think, come on, please. We saw that last week.
Yeah. He goes, when he hits that pool ball, he says, I've left it over the pocket for you.
Oh, honestly, I'm sure he's always talking in snooker. His whole life is all about snooker, like his euphemisms and everything.
He's trying to be as intimidating as possible.
Everything, honestly. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go and give John Virgo a call later, if you know what I mean. It's like one of the only snooker players I know. They also, like, it's probably a thing. I'm sure Ian Rankin's done his research, and I'm not digging, but...
Don't dig on Rankin.
No, I'm not. Drug dealing and the whole thing around the drugs on an island of about 8 people. Now, I think there's about 155 people, so there might be a market for it. But
surely you can sell it for more.
Ooh, maybe, because...
Who else is important?
Accessible, yeah.
It's like Lucasade. Sometimes when you go on abroad with Lucasade's really expensive.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. You go to a foreign country, because they don't brew it, they have to import it.
They don't brew it. Yeah, okay, it's like French wine for us. It's about 4 times more expensive than it is in actual France, yeah.
Yeah. Same with cocaine.
Yeah, and weed, along with plants. Someone actually said, surely that plant was already at the manse, or did she take it over herself? But if that's her camper van from before, she could have just taken it on the ferry in the back of her. Yeah, it's probably a little friend. No one's. They haven't got like guard dogs at the entrance to that island, have they? Sniffer dogs or anything? We see all the moment around. We've mentioned it already. Freddie asking Tony if he's ever visited Glasgow. You know, Freddie very much reminds me. He's so seedy with his, expensive watch and his sunglasses while they're sat in a greenhouse. Weirdly sat in a greenhouse. I think they're actually called something, aren't they? Are they like an orangery or something? I don't know. There's like he's got this like tropical house on the back of his massive place. It looks wicked. But he strikes me as a bit of a Harry Redknapp wheeler dealer. That obviously he's meant to come across like that. But I think with Hamish,
like a bit of a gangster, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think they might be pushing that a bit too hard, like Hamish. And I think both of them you can cross off almost. I don't think it will be either of them at the end.
No, definitely not.
And also, I don't think, well, look, perhaps Freddie is involved, but he's not getting his hands dirty. He could easily, hire someone to do it, but he's not doing the killing, is he?
Yeah.
That's where we find out about their previous roles, where Tony worked as a doorman, Charlie worked at the club as a DJ. I put it has to be Tony's baby. Like, yeah, it might not be, but I'd be massively surprised if it isn't. The fact that they've got that history. And also, what about the comment from last week? When we first see Charlie, she speaks to Sonia at the petrol station. And she says, look, I've changed. What happens in Glasgow stays in Glasgow.
Yeah. Her fucking Tony.
Yeah. I think
100%.
I think it is.
100%.
I got a message, and it was during the next scene, and I don't know whether or not I wasn't paying attention. I was on Twitter trying to follow.
Do you actually watch the show, or just listen to it?
Well, I try to do like all of it, and I catch up in the break. Okay. So like I use the pause function quite a lot. But Beth texted and said, Dot and Rocks, get your shit together. Or she might have tweeted us, to be fair, Dot and Rocks, get your shit together, because I can't remember what they did. Oh, this was where they went away from the meeting with Alicia on the beach, and they realised they'd forgotten so much to ask, and then they were asked questions.
No, was it with Tony and Sonia?
Oh, it might have been. Yeah, actually.
Because didn't he say good luck while they're walking
away?
You're
right. Yeah, it could well have been. I think you're right. My mistake. It was after that, and they went to see Tony and Sonia. Yeah.
And he's reading his book and having his sandwiches on a little picnic bench.
The dinghy is going to be a big thing in next.
Yeah, so that's obviously where they're getting the drugs in.
Yeah, the drugs are coming that way. I mean, there's a ferry that comes in, so you could just put them on a car.
You could 100%
get them over that way.
Are they just putting them on a dinghy and like pushing it?
Yeah,
like
rowing it. Yeah,
who's rowing the dinghy?
That's the next body in the water wrapped up. Oh shit! I just thought of that, but it could be.
No, you're not going to wrap up. Like, how is it going to wrap?
Yeah, why is it
up?
wrap? It's not going to wrap itself up, but.
Do you know what I
mean? But there is, and we've not mentioned this on the podcast yet. We mentioned it earlier in the week, but there's a body in the promo material for Murder Island, and on like a load of pictures that Channel 4 is still using, there's a body wrapped up in what looks like bin bags and sellotape or parcel tape or.
So do you think that's going to be a second body, or do you think that's?
It's got to be. They wouldn't still be using it, would they?
I don't know.
Or is it just a body that's meant to look? Or is a body that's meant to look like an island, but when you look at it again, it's a body?
I don't know.
Is that a bit?
Or is it just like we're doing this? This is the spec. Make us posters. Yeah,
and they've gone. Yeah, we'll go with it. And then Rankin didn't get the memo, so he's like, "Oh yeah, she died at home, and they found a body."
It's like too late. We've wrapped the body up in the water.
Yeah, because it's more like Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
with the way the body's wrapped up.
It's like Laura Palmer rather than Charlie Hendricks.
Yeah. So I'm going to rip this page out here because I want to keep it towards the end. It's just a prompt reminder.
So I'll jump in then. Quote of the episode. Have you got a quote of the episode?
I've got a moment for me, which was the next thing I was going to talk about, to be fair. Like, the next moment was around...
Something that made me laugh then was when the scene where we see Freddie asking Tony if he knew him.
Yeah.
In the pub.
Yeah.
and they're saying about staying at that house. And then he said about, well, we don't have to share a bed or anything.
I did take it. Yep, absolutely.
I was like, I don't think he even asked for that. He didn't even, Tony wasn't implying that at all. It's just such a weird thing to say.
And it's almost like, yeah, mate, because look at you. Like, it genuinely made me think, like...
You look like the bad guy from Biker Mice from Mars.
He really does. He really does. Or who's the... Is it in Count... Is it in Count Duckula? No, hang on. What's the other one? Danger Mouse. The frog-looking thing in Danger Mouse as well. Yeah, he's very much got that cartoon villain. Definitely got a cartoon villain look about him.
We don't share a bed or anything.
No, and if that had come from her...
You'll be lucky to share a bed. Yeah, if that came from her, it makes more sense.
If that had come from her, it made sense because it's almost like, oh, all right, Tony. Yeah, no, I'm not sleeping with him. Yeah, she might have been flirting with him or something like that. But the fact that he's just like, oh, where you living? Yeah, with her. But we don't share a bed. What?
Yeah, also, Tony knows how big that house is. It's like, I'm sure there's more than one bed, mate. I'm pretty confident it's like at least a 4-bed house.
Yeah, you're in that massive place up the road.
Then again, we did see a kitchen in a pool room.
Yeah, and then all they do is pull the mattress onto the top of the snooker table at the end of the night.
They're
just living in that little attic.
Is that the one bed?
They've got that.
He sleeps under and she sleeps above.
Yeah, and then they've got like an orangery at the back of the house where they can do interviews. It's brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. The moment for me that like it was such contrast to the rest of the episode, and it was a sprinkling of wholesomeness, but also it was quite heartwarming, was Chrissy's breakdown. And like, because we saw so much that Caroline was overpowering, just speaking all the time, and that's spoken about quite a lot, and we see that in every interview they do. You're going to say it's a bit like me and you, right? I knew you were going to.
I've literally wrote that down.
I knew it.
I've put, I'm Chrissy, Mike is Caroline.
Bloody knew it. But I write 3,000 words an episode, you write about 4. So
that's true.
And not 4,000, just 4. But I think the way in which, and I don't know if it was Simon or Macca who consoled her, but the way in which they managed that situation, it was lovely. And the fact that he took her outside and spoke to her separately, because you can see she doesn't want to hurt her friend. And like, if you need someone, mate, to take you outside under a stripy umbrella and have a word and say, look,
police branded umbrella,
a police branded umbrella, and says to you, is Mike taking all the credit for this and taking the piss? And like, we can have that little cuddle they had and like holding hands and stuff. I don't mind that. But I don't know, is it too late for them to bring it back around?
I hope it isn't after that.
You hope it isn't?
I think I hope they get like a second chance now.
And I really hope actually that it is Dot and Rox that go first, because they've missed too much information. But what I also like is that Chrissy apologizes and says, sorry, I didn't call you sir. And he's like, oh, we let it slip occasionally. That's fine. I've been called worse.
But not again. That's your one. That's your one chance.
Yeah.
One more time when
your card's
off,
marked.
You're gone.
We find out after all that has passed, because it was I just loved it. It was very much, it hit my sensitive side, that did. We've then we find out from Jean, who's waiting for that postbag #island life, that Jean was seeing Charlie for 4 weeks, which is significantly longer than I thought. I thought they've only known each other on the island for 2 weeks and they're hitting it off. Fair play. Life is short and all that. Poor Jean, I feel for her. Hamish, what on earth? Like, he is obsessive.
He's a mess, isn't he, at the moment?
He is. And I don't know how much of that was he like that before? I think he was. I don't think it's necessarily linked to the death of Charlie that he's acting all weird. I think he's probably just like that all the time.
I think it's the fact that his ex-wife, has moved on so quick. You know what I mean? Probably broke his heart.
Yeah, true. It's probably the last 4 weeks that's really crippled him. Yeah.
And also, he's a very quiet drunk. Like, he was in that woods or under that tree, not making a sound.
No, you're right. And that.
And also, did she unlock the door when she went in, Jean?
Where Jean went into where? Sorry,
I have to watch it again. Hamish was under a tree.
Oh, Charlie, when she was going back to
it was
her...
Charlie, wasn't it?
Yeah. When she was...
Jean. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah. But, again, it's too obvious.
But I thought they said they never locked their doors.
No, that wasn't... That was someone on Instagram that lives on the island was telling us that. That's not... Ian Rankin might not know that. That's not
real life.
That's not part of this story. That's in actual real life.
I'm getting too consumed.
Yeah, it's become us, hasn't it, really? Hamish creeping up. One of the best moments.
He's so good at that. Like, again,
so good.
Quiet.
That scene. And that, for
Do you
me...
think he was thinking, how close can I get without them turning up?
Yeah, and it's only because Jean's like, I can't talk about this right now, that they think, what? And he's made about 20 foot on him. He's walked quite a long way.
He's like a zombie, isn't he?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But this whole section is incredible.
Best part of the episode in terms of the way it played out, and I'll be honest, it was Richmond that made it what it was. Like,
he handled it perfectly. Because
the idea, I can't see that was ever written that was going to be the way it was. It was. I think he might have gone up to them and had a bit of an argy, like, they'd have found out the same information, but Richmond was like, no, I'm going to take you away from this. Come with me.
Yeah.
Handled it like an absolute pro.
Well, he did, because then Hamish had nothing to say.
Yeah.
So much that he had to leave the conversation.
And he's like, no, I'm calling it now. And you could tell none of this is scripted anymore.
Yeah, because
I told you everything I was going to tell Jean or shout at Jean across the water.
Yeah, the point is, I was coming to not intimidate Jean. I was coming to stalk Jean again, because then she had the dialogue of saying, he won't leave me alone. But then when Richmond started talking to Hamish, he had nothing to say.
It was superb. Absolutely superb. Yeah. I actually I tagged, because we've been in touch with Richmond, who does say that if a bonus episode comes up, then he's interested, which, bring it on. Let's do it. Let's have a chat with him. But did I say Hamish then? I'm losing my mind at the moment. Richmond. So I got in touch on Instagram, and I was like, just absolutely nailed that. It was another highlight. There were quite a few moments, weren't there? But absolutely killed that. I think, other than we see coming up, it's a focus on the Class A drugs, and they go in, interrogate Freddie some more. Someone's going to go, and they're going to do a whodunit style presentation to a judge or jury or a prosecutor or someone, aren't they? They're going to say, present evidence. This is why. Yeah. What a fantastic way to get rid of people.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being Palm going, I don't really like them. They, it needs to be about solid evidence. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. One thing before we move on about that scene with Richmond, I've got one of my last notes. Is when he's talking to Hamish, and he says, what was the relationship between Charlie and Jean? Was it friends? And he's like, lovers, potentially. He's like, I shouldn't have said that. I'll chuck potentially in there. Anyway, carry on.
No,
I'm all out. There's no random birds in the background or anything except that peacock.
And I am. And before we go back to, I just want to flick through. No, look, I think we're going to go back to the structure, because this whole episode for us in terms of recording over the last hour has been mad, because there was so much to capture. And to be honest, we're at a disadvantage because we're recording this immediately after the episode ends. It's not like we've had a week to put all of our thoughts down and structure it or anything like that. This is very much off the cuff, but it's the way we're approaching it, and we will have more, undoubtedly. We'll sleep on this and tomorrow morning think, shit, should have mentioned that, or what have you. Now, completely new feature, really, for this, because it's only our second episode and it's the first time we've ever done this, but we've included some of the comments and the tweets and things like that. But I have had over 100 Twitter notifications in the last 2 hours. So since the start of the episode to now, and it's now 20 to midnight, blimey. So yeah, all right, we've maybe just over a couple of hours. I've had over 100 and odd tweets and interactions. to read them all is going to be extremely difficult. To read a few, though.
But we are going to read them all, so strap in.
Yeah, strap yourselves in. This is another 2 hours. I think there are some real big call-outs. I'm just now going through and actually liking some of them because they're great. Most people, including Davros, I, 875 Dave, I don't know what that means, has said, Sarah and Richmond, really impressive. Just don't think that's the correct theory. Seems a little too obvious. It's Hamish the Ham Man.
Hamish the Ham Man.
Hamish the Ham Man. It's difficult for me to read. Can you like sing a little tune or something in the background whilst I read some of these and take in what it says before I read them out loud? Or do I just read them?
What, you scared you're going to get caught like Mo in The Simpsons?
Yeah, you never know.
Seymour Butts is saying...
Chris Peacock, and his name's Crispy Cock. Maybe that's the peacock's first name.
Yeah.
Oh. Someone's put, I say someone, Tedley Manor. I don't know if that's a place. No, Tedley Manor. It could be. Can we stay there overnight? Is it a hotel on the island, maybe? It's next to the manse. Tedley Manor says, I felt they all needed a crash course on the basics. Also, who the hell would look in a hot water bottle for the diary? I mean, you've been saying the same. Do we know if they have access to that diary? Surely they get access to that diary. I know they didn't find it, but it exists, doesn't it?
That hasn't come back, has it?
No, but
it's like you've missed the most important thing. Here it is. And then what's the detective doing? Just burning it in front of him? Unlucky.
You missed the cash and passport, so they burn the cash as well. You never find out who the passport belongs to. It's not actually Charlie's at all.
Do the detectives get the 50 grand if they solve it first?
We should. If we can solve this, like if we've got evidence, like from Ep 1.
Yeah.
I think if it's Sonia, then...
Right. Yeah. Right. Can Channel 4 do that? If we solve it before episode 6, we get the 50k.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Or a retweet. How's that? Yeah. We trade it off for a Channel 4.
50k or a retweet.
Yeah. That's a deal. Tedley Manor again also says, by the way, this isn't just 100 and odd tweets from Tedley Manor. Like, there are other people that have been messaging us. I've also got one here called Medley Tanner. No, Tedley Manor did say Chrissy needs to be taken off for the sake of her health. Maybe should have signed up for Bake Off instead. Bit harsh. A lot of love for the peacock, to be fair. Here's one. So Mrs. Taylor, and I'm not reading like at Nate. You know, just this is too complicated. There are far too many letters and numbers in people's names. Anyway, Mrs. Taylor says this episode is a lot slower paced than the last. I suppose they have to drip feed info, or the audience would solve it before the detectives. Maybe should have been a 4-part instead of a 6. But then that doesn't take into account the Rankin twist that we're going to see in episode 5.
True.
Which, to be fair, we'll get onto. There is some hate for the series. There are some people that didn't watch this episode because episode 1 was too boring, or they didn't quite understand it, or what have you. Hayley Louise has said, this is GCSE level drama. I'm trying so hard to enjoy it as I want to see how it plays out, as Ian's stories are never as simple as they seem. And I think that's what you've got to take from it, is that actually you know this is going to be a good story by the end of it. You absolutely know it, regardless of what you think right now about the pace of the episodes or the structure of it or the way it works with reality and things like that. Knowing that it's Ian Rankin, I think it's quite evident that there's going to be something coming our way, which leads us on to the next question, my friend. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
What is the Rankin twist? Before you answer, it's not a Scottish dance from the 1960s.
It is that Charlie was an inside agent for Freddie.
Love that theory. Absolutely love it. For me, we've only seen a glimpse into what's to come. We know that there's that body in the water. We
don't know that. We don't know that.
I'm going with it, all right? I think it's going dark. I think it's going brutal. and I think we're going Murder in Small Town X-esque. That's a Murder in Small Town X-esque approach, and that actually there's going to be some night investigation stakeout. There's going to be something where it all kicks off and someone else is murdered or
So
someone.
Who would be murdered then?
Oh, I'm not going that far. I'm just putting it out there.
The peacock?
No, I think Hamish might end up dead.
Okay, then so who is the murderer?
Well, I feel bad for deviating away from Sonia, but is it too obvious too soon?
I'm going to say Sonia still. Because I think a part of this isn't the fact that, right, who is it? Well, that is big part of it, actually. But it's how and why and when and can you prove it?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Sonia basically uses Tony as a puppet.
She has the keys to the place.
She has the keys to the place. What
she
you
probably
doing
knows
here.
about the previous relationship.
Exactly. Well, she confronted her at the petrol station. You know, I just feel like
she knows she was pregnant.
They could find out. They could be so sure it's Sonia, but unless they can prove it, and that's the way I think the show's going, isn't it? With
I
the
agree.
lawyers coming in.
Yeah,
it's like you definitely know, but you have to. And there's a lot of it with Simon, the detective, saying, "Right, well, you need to collaborate all this stuff with the CCTV, and you need evidence and to prove it. And your timeline is like you need that stuff. You can be 100% sure it's Sonia, but if you can't prove it, she's getting away with it.
Yep, and you're going home because you haven't got a leg to stand on.
Yeah, because you can't convict her. So I think maybe it might be as clear cut as that. The fact, well, we will know who it is, but is there enough there?
That's a really good point. Perhaps by episode 3, it's dead
certain.
Or
even
then it's just
even 5.
Yeah, true.
You know, there might be it's between Sonia and Jean. This is the evidence.
I mean,
this is the timeline.
You've ruined it for us, mate.
Why?
That $50,000 prize. You know, what you're saying is that we might know it from the start, but unless our case is watertight, so Channel 4 have got us, haven't they? They're just going to say, yeah, your case wasn't watertight, guys.
Yeah.
You didn't have the evidence. You didn't find the diary because, you know, who would put a diary in a hot water bottle for it to get wet?
Oh, I know. Tell me about it.
Couple that's going first then. Oh, I didn't give a killer, but look, I'm leaning towards Sonia because of what you said.
Am I turning into Caroline and you're the Chrissy now?
Absolutely not. I just appreciate your views and I will repeat them as my own.
Thank
the
you.
fact that I log into Twitter the most, I'm going to tweet it as though it's my theory. Because when I say we think it's Sonia, I'm just going off what you're saying. Because let's be honest, you're the one that pays, like, I'll be the one that pays attention to it all a lot more, but you're the thinker. I think, is that fair to say? You've come up with this amazing twist. I'm just like, yeah, just fucking explode stuff and make it dark and turn the lights out and kill other people. I just want to see that. Whereas you're like, no, what about a mole? So I think we can both agree that the first couple that will leave will probably be Dot and Rox based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think. No, I agree. Although this episode, I felt like you got to know all the couples better.
Yeah, way.
So it's a lot harder. Like first episode, I'd been like, yeah, like fine, no.
Yeah.
But this episode, I was like, oh.
But even Nick and Andrew didn't do themselves any favors.
Did they actually leave the office this episode?
Yeah, they went to the Orangery to speak to Harry Redknapp, to speak to Freddie.
Yeah. In the little secret garden.
Yeah.
And
I think that's it. And until next week, accept nothing, challenge, and check everything you are told. Still doesn't really have a ring to it, does it?
Not yet, no.